So these are the rules. This is an equal time question and answer debate. You gotta fix that. Time will be kept by my friend Eric here. A yellow card, show them the yellow card, will you, Eric? Will be shown when 15 seconds are left for the candidate to speak, and a red card will be shown when time is up. Please don't make me cut you off. I don't want to do that. It's smacks of incivility, but if you run over time, I will cut you off. So please respect the time. 2 minutes will be allowed for each candidate to make an opening statement. The candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question. 1 minute will be allowed for a response or a rebuttal from her opponent. In the interest of facilitating discussion, I will have the option of asking a follow-up question if I see it's necessary. And the same times will apply if I ask a follow-up question. The candidates may not ask questions of each other. 1 minute will be allowed for each candidate to make a closing statement. We did it the old-fashioned way. We drew straws, and the person who drew the long straw got to choose whether they go first in the opening statement or what their position would be in the last closing statement. And Janet Adkins drew the long straw, and so she will begin. Miss Burns, candidate Burns drew the long straw, but you're going first in the opening. Who's going first? Who's on first? All right. Okay. Which means that you will go first in your closing statements as well. Okay. You're on.
Thank you so much. Education is the one gift that we can give our children that no one can take away. I am passionate about education and have made improving education my full-time focus during my service on the school board and in the state legislature. As chair of the K-12 committee, I have seen what is happening in other school districts. I am running for superintendent of schools because I know what is possible, and I believe our children deserve better. During my public service, I have taken on some big issues. And let me tell you, our school district is facing some big challenges. Over the last 4 years, we have seen a 46% turnover in our teaching positions. We have seen the number of years of experience for our teachers fall from 11 years to 8 years. This turnover and loss of experience has a direct impact on learning in the classroom. The simple truth is that we are no longer an A school district. We have fallen to a B. This drop is a direct result of a drop in our student outcomes. Discipline in the classroom, it's a growing concern. 39% of middle school students and 28% of high school students right here in Nassau County have reported being victims of bullies. Bullying hurts learning and has a real impact on student performance. We must end cronyism and have a professional workplace that is built on trust and respect. We must improve our vocational education programs to meet our workforce needs. We must do a better job of providing competitive wages so that we can retain the best teachers. And we must end wasteful spending. Wasteful spending hurts our ability to be innovative and provide competitive wages. Everything we do needs to be focused on improving student performance and helping our students win the future.
Thank you. Candidate Burns.
Good evening, everyone. I am Kathy Knight Burns, and I want to be your next superintendent of schools. There is no higher calling than to love what you do and believe that it matters. Education is not my next job. It has been my life's work. I was born here in Nassau County, educated here, chose to work here, and raise my family here. I started my career in education at Callahan Intermediate School as a classroom teacher. From there, I went to the school board, and now I teach outside the county as required by the law. I've had other experiences, too. I was also the executive director of ARC Nassau, a local agency that serves mentally and physically challenged adults. I currently serve on the board of Take Stock in Children, and that is a local nonprofit agency that serves students in enabling them to receive college scholarships while also having a mentor along the way. I have spent the past 15 months knocking on doors and meeting with dozens of citizens of Nassau County in their homes and their community centers. I have listened to their compliments as well as their concerns for this school district. And let me tell you what they're concerned about. They want to know that our students are going to receive a quality education and that career and technical opportunities are available. They want to know that the leader of the Nassau County School District is listening and that their voice is heard. and the superintendent dedicates themselves to the protection of our students and preserving our resources. They also want something done about Common Core standards. They have some huge issues with Common Core standards. They also want to ensure that our students are safe and secure in our schools. It's all about the success of our students, our future. Thank you.
Okay, we will begin with the questions now. I want to remind you, you have 2 minutes in which to answer the question, and then your opponent has 1 minute rebuttal. We're going to start with candidate Burns. You are vice chair of the school board and have spent nearly 20 years on the board. What role did you play in decisions regarding what your opponent calls lavish travel expenses, the $1 million renovation of district offices, and the purchase of vans that needed to be auctioned off because they did not meet Department of Education standards?
The school board is a policy and procedures board as well as approving the budget. But I will address those issues. First of all, let's talk with the superintendent's office. Actually, the entire building on Atlantic Avenue, as well as the accompanying buildings next to it that used to be a part of Atlantic Elementary School, are considered the superintendent's office. So it's not $1 million on his office itself. It's money that was designated and advertised in 2008 to improve that building. Those were put on hold because we all know what happened in 2008. And those renovations were put on hold until recent times. And so that's what I can tell you about that. And the purchase of vans, that was a mistake made by the transportation director. The rules in Florida changed for purchasing vans and students that could ride on those vans, and we were able to sell those vans and recoup our dollars for those vans. So the renovation, the vans, and was there one more?
Yes, the lavish travel expenses.
Do you know educators? Do they ever get anything lavish done for them? I can't imagine that. I would like to see the details of the lavish spending, but I haven't seen any details of lavish spending, unless they're attending a conference at a location where they're required to be in attendance.
Okay. Candidate Adkins, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Listen, the state constitution outlines responsibilities of school board members, and they're responsible for providing oversight to the operations of our schools, number one. Number two, all you have to do is to take a look at the general ledger, and you will see the lavish expenses at the Ritz-Carlton Grand Lakes in Orlando, the Disney Coronado Springs Resort, the Westin St. Francis in San Francisco, and the Hyatt McCormick in Chicago. And that's not all. There's many others. But let's also talk about the computers that were purchased, $143,000 in computers that were purchased for student testing, but alas, they're not compatible with the testing requirements. And we'll talk about the $4 million road that was built for the entrance to Wildlight Elementary School. Taxpayers will pay for a new road for a private developer, interest-free money. This is not appropriate for the school system. Maybe it's appropriate for the county commission, but not the school board. This is money that is being taken out of the classroom. This is a bad deal for taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Adkins, concerns about the school system's budgeting practices, this flows quite nicely into your answer, include what some call overspending for the new elementary school, Wildlight. As superintendent, what would you have done differently?
Thank you for that question. Number one, I would not have signed that contract. Let's be clear about that. So it's been reported in the paper that this was a donation of land, but that's not true. This school board was cited in the auditor's report for failure to get an appraisal on that property because it was a swap for impact fees. It's not a donation, it's a swap. And they never, until the Auditor General reprimanded them in the report, said that let's get an evaluation of that land. But I'm also concerned because when you look at that $26 million, it's going to provide, as reported by the newspapers, roughly 600 student stations. When you do the math, that is $43,500 per elementary student station. Now, Florida law caps construction on elementary schools at roughly $22,000 per student station for an elementary school. Why are taxpayers paying roughly half of what state law allows? And listen, this is taking money out of the classroom. We have other capital improvement needs that we need to be making in many of our other schools, but yet we're not able to do that because we are overspending on the school. And oh, by the way, this contract also says that that your students, your grandchildren, and your children can only attend if there's excess capacity left over after the children that live in that planned community get first dibs at those seats. So essentially, our school board is spending, we're building a Cadillac school that our children are not really going to be able to access unless we live in that planned community or unless there's excess capacity left over. So again, I would not have signed the contract. I think it's a bad deal. You take that in context with the $4 million road to Wildlight Elementary School, which is interest-free money for a private for-profit company, and we don't know when those dollars are going to be paid back to the school system. Again, that's on the backs of our children, taking money directly out of our classrooms.
Candidate Burns, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, first of all, who can control how bids come in for construction? And that school is not being built for 600 students. It's not a simple math problem. That school is being built for 800 students, along with it being the cafeteria and the outdoor spaces and the indoor spaces. We're building for the future, as well as a hurricane shelter. Is there anyone here that wants to do without a hurricane shelter off the island? So all of those expenses will be included. And I can just bet you, when that construction is finished, that we will come in under budget. We have an impeccable record with construction in Nassau County, and we have not been wasting your dollars.
Your response.
So quickly, doing the math, we're still spending over $32,000 per student station. $32,000 per student station when state law caps the spending at roughly $22,000 per student station. Do the math. This is a bad deal for taxpayers.
Go ahead, Candidate Burns.
And let me just add a few more things. We're required to build retention ponds, air handlers for every room. And let's go back to the Sandy Hook Elementary School event. We all know the tragedy that happened there. And while no one can prevent a tragedy, one of the issues that was addressed in the aftermath of that is that by entering one section of that school, that intruder was able to get to all of the students. We have prevented that from happening. Not that we can prevent a tragedy from happening, but that is not the case in the schools that we build or in Wildlight Elementary School. And let me just add that your students will be going to that school. You have to be more concerned about the open enrollment that was approved by our legislatures, that students from all over Florida can attend our schools.
Candidate Burns, this next question is for you. You have expressed enthusiasm about a 2014 federal grant to help the district develop a school climate transformation project. The goal is to improve behavioral outcomes and learning conditions for students. But a grant isn't usually a renewable resource. As superintendent, how would you make sure grant-funded programs are sustainable?
Well, as an educator, I'm always looking for another grant dollar, I can tell you that, no matter where it comes from. And you're right, the $3 million we received to implement this program for positive behavior is a grant. A grant is free money for a specific period of time. And the whole idea behind the grant is that we are encouraging and promoting positive behaviors. It would be my goal that once that grant has expended, that we are in the mode of that positive behavior plan, and that is permeating throughout the district, or we're looking for another grant to do even more to promote positive environments for learning and for students in our school district.
Thank you. Listen, discipline in the classroom is a growing concern. Bullying hurts learning, and it keeps our children from winning the future. According to their own data in this grant application, nearly 5,000 discipline referrals occurred, over 2,500 suspensions. 28% of high school students and 39% of middle school students report being victims of bullying. Listen, I am not into social engineering. I believe that bad behavior should result in consequences, plain and simple. I believe we must remove disruptive students from the classrooms. It's not fair to our students when disruptive behavior is allowed to continue. I will create a district-wide task force to reduce bullying and school violence. I will launch an anti-bullying campaign to improve school safety. I will ensure that principals actually enforce the student code of conduct. I will expand use of technology and cameras in the classroom to improve campus safety. And I will provide teachers with greater training in classroom management. I will stop discouraging teachers from writing discipline referrals, and I will provide leadership development training to principals to help them work with parents to improve student behavior.
This next question is candidate Adkins' to answer. Critics have raised concern about potentially unethical practices and conflicts of interest on the part of the district. Contracts awarded through a no-bid process, retired school employees being rehired as contractors, and hiring and promotion practices in general have come under scrutiny. How would you, as superintendent, ensure the public does not perceive you or your members of the board as violating state laws governing ethical practice?
Thank you so much. there's a lot of cronyism that's prevalent in our school system. And when we have cronyism present in our school system, it undermines all trust and respect within that system. When employees know that they've been passed over for a promotion because of someone's last name, because of who they know, because of who they're friends with, that's a real problem. Every decision we make needs to be based on having the positive outcome for our students. And so I can tell you, we will absolutely have a policy that makes it very clear that we will not have any sort of nepotism or contracts with any member of a family. There was an Attorney General opinion that was put out just a few years ago that makes it very clear. You had a teacher that wanted to sell t-shirts to their school, and they got an Attorney General opinion, and the opinion came back to say, no, it would be wrong for that teacher to sell t-shirts within that school. And so we'll have an open bid process. We will end the era of no bid contracts, and we will absolutely make sure that we have a transparent budget. I have committed to putting our budget and our general ledger online so that Nassau County citizens can hold us accountable. This is important. This is their taxpayer money, and we have to uphold the trust that they place in us. That is critical. I will make sure that we have a work environment based on trust and respect.
Candidate Burns, your 1-minute response.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, Chapter 287 of the Florida statutes outlines what you can and can't spend money on and what has to be bid and what doesn't have to be bid. We have followed Chapter 287 because we have not had any sightings in our audit for this. As far as cronyism, well, I don't know. I've never benefited from it myself. I want the best candidate for every position in Nassau County, and I don't care what their last name is or who they're related to. I am committed to the success of students in Nassau County School District.
Okay, Candidate Burns. Taxpayers believe they have a right to know what is going on in their schools, yet there is a perception that the school system in the past has omitted from public record information about suspected criminal activity on campuses involving students and staff. How would you make sure that school administrators, teachers, and staff document issues of public record, particularly those related to possible criminal behavior on school property?
Well, I don't know if you've heard the saying, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Everything needs to be documented. We need to ensure that we are protecting our children. If there's a public records request, then we're going to honor that request to the best of our ability. If law enforcement needs to be involved in an issue, we're going to involve law enforcement. We have resource officers in our middle and high schools, and I'd love to see them in every school.
Candidate Adkins, you have your 1-minute response.
Well, I can personally attest to the problems with public records requests because I've made a number of them over the last several months, trying to get access to the data to better understand how our tax dollars are being spent. And let me tell you, it goes something like this. I get an email back saying, well, Ms. Adkins, your data request is quite lengthy, and it's going to take quite extensive administrative work to fulfill your request. Would you like a quote on how much we would have to charge you? And so I would reply back and say, yes, I would. And then the email would come back something like this. Well, Ms. Adkins, we anticipate that it would be roughly $1,500 to $2,500 to fulfill your public records request. So what I've learned that you need to do is you need to go and personally pay a visit to the superintendent's office and ask to publicly inspect the records. And when you do that, you'll get access. But let me tell you, this issue of transparency goes far beyond that because we need to absolutely improve how we are televising the school board meetings.
Candidate Adkins, if you become the next superintendent, how do you expect to support teachers, given what appears to be your contentious relationship with the organization that represents them at the bargaining table?
Thank you for that question. Listen, in support of my commitment to do better, I have crafted a contract with the school district employees. I will be a collaborative leader. We will work together to understand the issues, and we will work toward reaching consensus. I believe that when we get employees involved in crafting solutions, then the motivation will be intrinsic, and we'll all be committed to that success. So here's what I'll do. I will end the cronyism. We will have a work environment that's based on trust and respect. For too long, employees have had to work in fear of retaliation loss of job security, and being denied promotions. I will eliminate this culture. It is toxic to our success. I will create a professional and transparent path for career advancement at all levels within the organization. I will oppose privatization of food service, transportation, custodial, and maintenance positions. I will look to end the excessive use of outside staffing agencies and will look for ways to keep our tax dollars in Nassau County. And I will support providing our teachers with planning time to prepare for the challenges of providing a good education. Listen, if we want to succeed, we must have time to plan for success. And teachers have my commitment to make this happen. I commit also to an open door policy so that everyone has an avenue to have their issues addressed. Employees should never feel as though they have no one to go and talk to. Employees should have the access and the support that they need to build a better future.
Candidate Burns.
Could you restate the question, please?
Yes. If you become the next superintendent, how do you expect to support teachers given what appears to be your contentious relationship with the organization that represents them at the bargaining table? That question was addressed to candidate Adkins.
Well, I believe one of the assets I bring to this job is that I was not in a classroom 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I was in a classroom just a few months ago. I understand the challenges that teachers face, that their standards have changed 3 times since 2011. I know that they need planning time, but I also know that they need support. And one of the goals I have in my plan for the future of Nassau County School District is I call the classroom connection, that everyone at every level is going to spend time in a classroom. Whether you're an administrator, principal, or whatever, walking in those shoes, because sometimes we get too far removed from where the action is. And if it's not happening in the classroom, nothing else matters.
Okay, this next question is really in the form of a follow-up to your answer, candidate Adkins. In your 13-point contract, which you referred to, with employees of the school system, you pledged to end a climate of fear in the school system. You proposed in the last legislative session a state law requiring mature or adult content in the course syllabus be identified to parents. In an interview with the News Leader, you indicated you were looking for an interpretation of the statutes and that apply to harmful to minors and obscene. You said that current statutes are not clear in determining when a reading requirement for a minor crosses the line. Are you interested in criminalizing the act of making certain reading assignments, and wouldn't that create a climate of fear?
Thank you for that question. I think that's a bit of an overreach of what I was really trying to accomplish with that statement of getting an Attorney General opinion. I think it is important that our teachers know what that statute means and what that statute refers to. I would think as a teacher, you would want to know exactly what that means. But let me tell you, I'm concerned about this Common Core curriculum. I'm concerned about sexually explicit content in our schools. I'm very concerned. What I did in that amendment was to require that if a teacher wants to require adult or mature content in the classroom, that parents should have the right to know. I absolutely believe that. Parents should have the right to know if their children are being exposed to adult or mature content. And so I think it's important that teachers understand the role that they play. We send our students, we send our children to school to learn. And when teachers engage in assigning sexually explicit assignments to our children, that creates harm to our children. But it's not the teachers picking up the pieces. It's moms and dads that are picking up the pieces. So yes, when I'm superintendent of schools, we will have a very clear discussion about making assignments dealing with sexually explicit materials in the classroom.
Okay, Candidate Burns, your response?
Well, it is my hope that we're not sharing sexually explicit materials in our schools with students. And I do know that when students are taking dual enrollment, which are college level classes, then parents do sign an agreement saying that they understand it's going to be different and they're going to be different curriculum, and it could include things that are out of the norm of the school district. And Common Core was mentioned. Many of us have participated in the education summits held by a representative, and Common Core has been the topic almost every time. So I'm interested in knowing more about the concerns about Common Core, because it is a concern of the people of Nassau County, and especially in the area of math. I haven't seen anything in the standards that I've taught about sexually explicit material, so I didn't realize that was such a problem, but it would certainly be addressed, and I would trust our teachers that they would not be engaging our students in such.
This is for you, Candidate Burns, and then also for Candidate Adkins. This is a question intended for both of you. Recently, the federal government issued guidelines regarding accommodations for transgender students in school bathrooms and locker rooms. Setting aside the complaint about federal mandates forced on state institutions, what is your position on accommodations for transgender students seeking what they consider appropriate bathroom or locker room facilities in public schools?
And I'm going to summarize my position into a few sentences because I know I have a time limit. But basically, my position is that for the safety and privacy of all students, that girls should use girls' facilities and boys should use boys. And I believe that's what's best for our students. But I want to add to that because I've had a conversation with a parent recently of a child who was having a struggle. And even the parent in talking to me said, honestly, I don't even know what to call them. He, she, I don't know what to say. And listen, we're educators and we're educational leaders. You do not think that we're going to have one student be called out or singled out. We will make accommodations when necessary.
Your response, Candidate Adkins?
I noticed that when my opponent gave her answer, she used the word should, not will. She said girls should use the girls' restroom and boys should use the boys' restroom. Let me be clear. When I'm superintendent of schools, boys will use the boys' locker room, bathroom, and showers, and girls will use the girls' shower room, locker, and bathroom. Let's be very clear about that. I oppose the implementation of this federal mandate, and if they threaten to take away our $11 million in federal funding, I will work with lawmakers to fill in the gaps and defend our values. This recent guidance letter that was jointly issued by the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Justice Department is an absolute federal overreach of their authority. This is essentially an unadopted federal rule that supersedes our school boards and our state legislatures. And not only that, but it undermines parental authority. When you read that letter and you understand that most of our children in our K-12 system are minors, and then there's a sentence that says that a student or parent can claim to be transgender, you don't even have to have the parental authority. That undermines parents' rights.
Candidate Adkins, criticisms of the Common Core education standards are often broad and vague. People speak of fighting against them. Tell us specifically what about Common Core you object to and how you can fight against its implementation without jeopardizing federal funds to the district, especially if you're going to lose $11 million because of the other guideline.
So let's be clear. The Florida state standards are adopted by the Florida Board of Education. It is this body that decides what specific standards and rules to adopt for K-12 schools in Florida. It is not the responsibility of the legislature to adopt the state standards. It falls under the State Board of Education. It is up to our local school boards and teachers to decide how to teach the standards. This is called curriculum. It is the Common Core curriculum where most parents, including myself, have issues with what's happening in the classroom. When I hear of extra credit being offered to students to memorize the 5 pillars of Islam in a 6th grade world history class, this is a problem. When we are selecting textbooks that promotes Islam, this is a problem. When civic students are forced to declare their Bill of Rights against their parents, basically declare all your grievances against your parents, and then declare your independence. This is a problem. When we discourage students who love math by forcing them to do it in a certain way, or they don't get credit, this is a problem. Listen, these are all problems that are created at the local level, and when I am superintendent, I will eliminate these problems. We will adopt our own curriculum and our own textbooks. Let me be clear. Common Core curriculum will be over in Nassau County when I'm superintendent. We will have textbooks that are accurate, objective, balanced, non-inflammatory, current, and suited to our students' needs.
I'm compelled to ask a follow-up to your answer, if you will. What will you do about the federal funding that might be jeopardized by you rejecting the Common Core curriculum?
So there is no federal funding that would be in jeopardy by rejecting the Common Core curriculum. As I stated earlier, curriculum is determined at the local level. Under your watch, we are using a textbook that promotes Islam. So why have you not, in the last 17 years, done more or explored more to resolve this issue? Surely you've heard the outcry from parents about this issue. Let me tell you, it's not so much that we're teaching math in different ways. The frustration comes when you have a student that gets it one way, but they're forced to do it 4 other ways in order to get credit. We're taking away the love of math for so many of our students. And so I've had multiple conversations with the Department of Education about this issue, saying, please tell me, is there ever a test where the students have to solve a math problem in a particular way? And the answer is no. No, there is no test that requires you to do the math in a particular way. And think about it, when you take the SAT, you have 1 minute. 1 minute to get that answer right, and then you gotta move on. And if you miss, there goes your SAT score.
Okay, Candidate Burns. Your website demonstrates your staunch advocacy of STEM education, including preparation for careers in robotics and aviation. Yet more and more university professors complain about students who cannot write, a skill needed in all facets of life. How would you balance the need for students to be equipped to find employment in a technology-based society versus that of their need to learn and be proficient in fundamental reading and writing skills and basic math?
I'm a strong believer in great writing. Let me just give you an example of what's going on in our school district this year in the robotics program that we started in our high schools. Students are building, testing, revising robotics, and they are winning competitions across our area in robotics. But it's not just about building a robot. And when I've implemented it in my own classroom, it's about integrating science, social studies, reading, math, all the subject areas, but not just construction. You have to be able to write. You have to write informational papers about it. You have to write detailed instructions. So when we're using STEM, as long as we're integrating all the subject areas, kids don't even know they're learning as much as they are learning. But I believe it has to be integrated with all the other subject areas, and I believe strongly in great writing.
Candidate Adkins.
Absolutely, thank you. So, what I hear from teachers is that their students are required, at least in the elementary schools, to spend too much time on the computer. And that someone at the district office must be looking in on what's going on because they get prompted by the district office if their students aren't spending enough time on the computer. When you're spending all that time on the computer, you are not improving your writing skills. I would implement literacy across curriculum. I would actually do something novel called Let's Return Our Writing Papers to our students so they can get feedback on how they did. I can tell you as a mom that when my student turns in a paper and just gets a grade back in focus, but they didn't actually get the paper back, so they don't know what they lost the 12 points for. You've got to have that feedback loop in place in order for the students to improve and to know what they need to do differently next time. Is it grammar? Is it the sentence structure? Listen, I was talking with Attorney just last week, and he's saying, listen, I am frustrated because even attorneys that I'm hiring are not able to write comprehensive sentences.
All right, thank you. This next question is for both candidates. We'll start with Candidate Burns. A third-party candidate for this office declined an invitation to join this debate, yet her presence in the race has resulted in cutting out of the process all voters but those registered as Republican. Some are suspicious that her third-party candidacy was designed to do this. If elected, how will you regain the trust of voters who believe they have been disenfranchised?
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? I used to say how many days I had left in this campaign. And it would be 43 days, but really it would not be 43 days because we do have to go to November. But let me tell you what has happened in Nassau County. I think it's been something quite a surprise to some people. I grew up in a Democratic family. My father worked at a mill. He was a union man. All of my family members were Democrats. I made a change many years ago to be a Republican. And so that was something that was near and dear to me, having them have the right to vote. But almost 2,000 people in Nassau County have changed their party affiliation so that they can vote in this election. So I believe we already have their confidence and trust, and we will continue to build that moving forward. But I do believe that Ms. Cheryl James, who I've never met or laid eyes on, and I would love to, that's quite an anomaly right now. I hope perhaps we'll see her after August 30th.
your response, and then you will address the same question.
I'll just address the question.
Okay.
I understand that there's been a lot of loose talk during the course of this campaign. I've been accused of wanting to privatize transportation, food service, maintenance, and custodial services. I've been accused of planning to eliminate music and art in our schools. And I've even been accused of not having children in our public school system. The simple truth is this. I'm the only candidate that has made a public commitment in writing that I will not privatize transportation, food service, custodial maintenance services. I have, in fact, fought privatization for the state hospital in Baker County because it's bad public policy. The loss of that hospital would have had a devastating impact on the city of McClenny by as much as 20%. The truth is that I will expand music and art. The truth is that I'm the only candidate in this race with children currently attending Nassau County schools. So I know what's happening from a mom's perspective. And the simple truth is I do not know Ms. James. I have nothing to do with her campaign. I have nothing to do with her candidacy. But let me tell you what's on the minds of those that I talk with. As I'm going door to door, people ask me, who's the most conservative candidate in this race? And let me tell you, there's no doubt that I'm the most conservative candidate. I am pro-family, I am pro-gun, I am pro-life, and I'm a fiscal conservative. This past year, I worked not only to increase funding for education, but also cut property taxes by $400 million.
Okay, I can tell Candidate Burns you want to respond to her answer.
I thought the question was about Cheryl James and the Democrats being able to vote.
It was, yes. This next question is for both candidates, and we'll start with Candidate Adkins. In reviewing contributions to your campaigns, some people wonder how your decisions as superintendent will be influenced by the support you receive. Candidate Burns has received contributions from unions and builders inside Nassau County, and Candidate Adkins has received contributions from donors outside of Nassau County, including business interests and charter school organizations. What return on their investment can these donors expect should you become elected?
So there's been a lot of talk about my donors. So a couple of weeks ago, I took the time to compare my donor list to that of my opponents. At that time, I found that my opponent and I both had 97 local donors, the exact same number. Now it's changed some since then, but at that point, it was 97 for both of us. I can tell you, having served in the legislature, I have worked with a lot of people, and I am grateful that many of them have been willing to support my campaign, even though there is nothing for them to gain from this election. Perhaps more importantly, though, voters should ask my opponent why she approved over $42,000 in school district expenditures to her campaign donors. These expenditures went from August the 27th, 2015 to January 28th, 2016, after she filed as a candidate and opened her campaign account. So here they are. Jowett and Wood, Cheryl James' husband, $9,703, check number 228304, written on January 4th, 2016. $7,520, check number 228628, January 28th, 2016. RPM Lumber, Pat Edwards, $3,198.09, check number 224946, on August the 27th, 2015. Myers Tractor Service, $6,835, check number 224912, on August the 27th, 2015. Mizell Development Corporation, $13,080, check number 224907, again on August 27th, 2015. In fact, the $4 million road that she voted on provides a direct benefit to her campaign donors. As a former school board member, I understand that the Florida Constitution outlines two main responsibilities for the board, one of which is to operate, control, and supervise all free public education within the school district. It kind of goes back to one of the earlier questions that you asked about ethics.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute to respond to her, and then I'm going to ask you to respond directly to the question. Okay? Okay, thank you.
Well, can I do both together? I could. Well, maybe I'll respond to your question.
Let's just
Okay,
do
yeah,
the
let's
one.
do that. First of all, I said in my opening remarks that I was born and raised here in Nassau County. Let me tell you what you cannot buy. That is relationships with people. And those have been built over my 56 years of living here. You particularly point out RPO lumber. I met Pat and Orion Edwards the first day they moved to Nassau County, wondering what they were doing wandering around the land next to my house. Jowett Wood has been doing business with our school district long before and during your time on the school board. Myers Tractor Service, another long-time relationship. Adam Mizell, longtime friend of our family. I just hate that they have been pointed out in this, because let me tell you, I am not for sale. I don't care how much anybody contributes. When I started this campaign, I was told that I would need $80,000 or more to run this campaign. That made me ill as an educator. But I have been blessed with people all over this county who have supported me in this campaign and supported me financially. And for that, I am grateful.
Okay, so what return on investment can your donors expect should you become superintendent?
An educator dedicated to the success of our students and the improvement of our schools from now on.
Candidate Adkins, you're entitled to respond.
Thank you so much. And so there's been much made of charter schools that have donated to my campaign. Let me be clear about that. I have always supported a parent's right to choose the best educational environment for their child. Whether it's a traditional school, a charter public school, homeschool, virtual school, private school, I believe it's the parents' rights to choose what's best for their environment. However, charter schools primarily operate in larger urban counties, not in smaller rural ones. So there is no expectation that they have of a return on investment from me simply because they've donated to my campaign. The return on investment that Nassau County will receive is that we'll have a strong leader that's focused on student outcome, someone who has a vision for what's possible, someone who brings that unique blend of experience, someone who can compete in Tallahassee. Let me tell you, we've not been competing in Tallahassee, and that needs to change.
As a follow-up to your statement, you are the voice for Nassau County in Tallahassee. Have you not been advocating for the county? Do we need to hire a lobbyist here?
Well, let me tell you how Tallahassee works. Tallahassee is very competitive. Healthcare competes against education. Transportation competes against public safety. It's a competitive environment. And so if you are a school system and you are counting on your county that money is just going to come your way without you not being actively engaged, you are dead wrong. You're absolutely dead wrong. I can tell you as chair of the K-12 committee, I had superintendents and school board meeting members from Monroe County, Palm Beach County, Broward, Miami-Dade, Duval, St. John's Clay, all over the state come and see me. Not once did I see anyone from the Nassau County School Board, either the board or the superintendent, in the halls of Tallahassee. Let me tell you, when we're not in the halls of Tallahassee as a board and as a superintendent, and we're not competing for those state dollars, then our students are losing. Our students are losing because let me tell you, every other school district virtually is there, and they're competing. And if you don't have a seat at that table, guess what? You're on the menu.
Okay. Candidate Burns, you want to respond? You have a minute.
I don't know if we'd have been welcome. Let me just say this about per pupil spending, because during from 2008 to 2013 in Tallahassee, our per pupil spending went from approximately $9,000 to $8,000. So that is a concern. And yes, we've been communicating with people in Tallahassee, and we have established our priorities for the legislative session, and we have shared those. But we did count on our representatives to do that for us. That's all I have to say.
Oh, do I get a minute to respond?
No, she was responding to your question, so you don't get to respond. But you do get to answer this question. In your 13-point contract to Nassau County School Board employees, you mentioned it's time for common sense curriculum that aligns with our values. You've spoken of this already this evening. What values are you talking about? Are schools responsible for teaching values, or is that the job of the parents?
Thank you. So what I'm referring to there is the textbooks that promotes Islam that's being used in at least one of our schools here in Nassau County. For the record, I'm opposed to having this textbook being used in our schools. I believe that the social issues should be left to the parents and not to the school system. When I hear of critical thinking discussions in our high school that talks about moral issues, for instance, do you ever think it's okay for a man to cheat on his wife? Of course we need to do critical thinking, but for many families, including me, including mine, that's a black and white issue. And I personally object to a teacher introducing the concept that perhaps it's ever okay for a man to cheat on his wife. That's problematic for me. So I think and then you go back to the world history class. It's a world history, not world religion. But yet we're offering extra credit to 6th graders to learn the 5 pillars of Islam. That's wrong. That is wrong.
Candidate Burns?
Please take the question, please.
Sure. This was directed to candidate Adkins. In your 13-point contract to Nassau County School Board employees, you mentioned it's time for common sense curriculum that aligns with our values. What values are you talking about? Are schools responsible for teaching values, or should that job rest with the parents?
I believe that job does rest with the parents. We are responsible for teaching our children our beliefs and our values in the home. Just to follow up to that, I would like to know the name of that textbook for certain. And it sounds like we have 2 or 3 teachers that are doing some things that may be unethical. Maybe we could follow up with that. But I believe that our teachers are doing the right thing, and I believe they are teaching the curriculum. But values must be taught at home. And an example is in the area of evolution. That's not what I believe. That's not what I teach in my home. But in our standards, in our curriculum, it says that the theory of evolution. Now, there are many theories, but it's important for parents and people in the home to teach what they value to their students in the home, to their children.
I do want to ask a follow-up to your question, or your answer, candidate Adkins. You said you personally object to the things that you see in the curriculum. Is it your job to personally object as the superintendent? Aren't you supposed to represent everybody in the county?
So I believe as superintendent of schools, you have a responsibility to protect our community values, things that align with our community standards. I'm not into social engineering. I believe that we need to protect our community values.
Okay, I guess I'm going back, I don't want to be argumentative here, but what values, who's deciding what the community values are?
Well, I guess the voters will decide what their community values are. I've taken a pretty strong position on this transgender issue. I'm the only candidate who's really taken a strong position on the transgender issue. My opponent says that they should use the respectful voucher.
Change the wheel.
That's convenient. That's convenient. That's convenient.
Did you want to respond, candidate Burns?
I don't.
Okay. All right, I think we have time for one more question. And this one is a look into the future. It's a softball, okay?
Oh, great.
Okay. Candidate Burns, Nassau County is changing. More retirees are moving to the island, more young families are moving to West Nassau, and the number of students is growing. At the same time, there are reports that it's getting more difficult to keep teachers in the district. What are the challenges? What are the challenges you see for the district over the next 10 to 20 years?
That's one of them. Recruitment and retaining quality teachers. Also ensuring that our students are ready for an ever-changing world. It's a different world than you and I grew up in or went to work in. Students are preparing for jobs that have not even come into existence yet. The other thing is, I believe we need less testing and more teaching. And when that happens, great things are happening in the classroom. Recruiting and retaining teachers. Teachers and looking out for teachers has to be a priority for everybody. It can't just be here in Nassau County. It needs to be from the White House to the schoolhouse. Without teachers, there would be no other profession if you think about it. But let me tell you, if you look at national survey data, teachers are not leaving because of pay, even though they should be the highest paid people around, because without teachers there would be nobody else. Teachers are leaving because they're not allowed to teach and because of too much testing. And I believe when we solve that problem, that we're going to be able to recruit and retain and keep our teachers in the classroom. We are blessed with many great teachers in our classroom who have chosen to make Nassau County their home, and new ones that are coming every day. And we want to ensure that we keep those teachers in the classroom, because if it's not happening in the classroom, nothing else matters.
Is it okay with you if I just give you 2 minutes to respond to that question, given the time?
For me?
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. So do you need me to repeat it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
So, Nassau County is facing many challenges, one of which is this federal overreach dealing with the transgender issue. The second is the Common Core curriculum. Third is school safety. Fourth is falling student performance. We've not spent a lot of time talking about that, but the data is very real. We are facing a math crisis here in Nassau County. Workforce readiness. We need to be honest about our math and our SAT scores. We need to refocus on STEM and vocational education. We must expand access to SAT and ACT prep classes. Workforce shortage, it's real. With 46% turnover in the last 4 years and a drop in teacher experience from 11 to 8 years, workforce shortage is a growing concern. And overspending on construction, that's a problem too. But let me take a moment to talk about this pay, that my opponent seems to think teachers aren't leaving because of pay. I disagree. I strongly disagree. You take a look at our salary schedule for teachers, you have to be here 7 years before you see a $1,400 increase. That's for a beginning teacher. Now, if you've been here for a few years, you're going to get a substantial increase from year to year to year. But in those first 7 years, we're tough on beginning teachers. That's a problem. You want to know why we're losing so many teachers in the first 3 to 5 years? I think that's one reason. I think a second reason is we have too much testing. But my opponent fails to say that most of this testing is mandated by the district. Where has she been when it comes to reducing testing? And the third thing I think our teachers are frustrated about is the curriculum mapping. I hear it, especially from elementary and middle school teachers, when they talk about the district offices mandating what they're doing every 5 minutes in the classroom from 8:30 till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You want to know why teachers are leaving? Because we've completely taken out all the creativity and tradecraft that they are so passionate about. The very reason they went into teaching is because they love to see the aha moments occur on those children's faces. That's what they live for. And when we've reduced them to just checking a list, when they're subject to getting in trouble from the principal because they weren't on schedule, this is a problem and it needs to be stopped.
I would love to give you a response, but we're running out of time, so perhaps you can fold that into your concluding remarks. I believe that by the pull of the straw that Representative Adkins will go first and School Board Vice Chair Burns will go second, correct? You have 1 minute.
There is much work to be done, and we must have a sense of urgency about our future. The simple truth is that we have fallen to a B school district. Too many of our students are failing state math assessments. We need a superintendent that is focused on student success. My biggest skill is that of problem solving. We need a superintendent that can see the big picture and craft a solution before it becomes a crisis. We need to compete at the state capitol on both policy and budget. I am the only candidate with experience to compete in Tallahassee. We need to end wasteful spending and bad deals for taxpayers. I'm the only candidate with an MBA and extensive budgeting experience. And we need someone who's going to tell the truth about our graduation rates. We need to stand on our conservative principles and defend our values. I am the only true conservative in this race. I ask for your vote August 30th.
Candidate Burns.
Can I get a minute?
Yes.
And we are a B. We're 1 point from an A, and we're digging for that A right now. Let me be honest with you. I've been accountable for the performance of students. I've been accountable for stretching the dollars, teaching students to read, raising the standards, and answering to you, the public. I believe when you have accountability, you have credibility. The superintendent of schools sets the tone and the direction of the school district. It's important to have open communication with all stakeholders about student achievement, about our budget, about district initiatives, but in order to have effective communication, it requires an in-depth analysis of the issue, not just a presentation or short little snippets of statistics intended to mislead and misdirect. So before you cast your vote on August 30th, you're going to be evaluating me, my qualifications, my history, and my positions. You're going to choose a person that you believe that you can entrust the welfare of our students for years to come. I want you to know that I will continue to make the children and the schools of Nassau County my life's work. Thank you very much. Thank you.
To our debate tonight, and I'd like to have a round of applause for our moderator.